Well, we thought Kentucky was pretty much done with their roster for this upcoming season, but if things fall the right way tomorrow, they could be adding one more big-time piece.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we are going to be talking about Braydon Hawthorne, who is announcing his commitment tomorrow. Seems like a pretty neck-and-neck race between Kentucky and one other team. Going to dive into my thoughts on that. Does Kentucky need another player? How would Hawthorne fit on the roster if he did end up committing? Going to also talk about a top 5 prospect that apparently Kentucky is in very good standing with right now. And then to wrap up the show, we got a quick listener question about Dawe. Pretty comfortable about the current situation surrounding Dawe. We'll get to that later in the show. This episode's brought to you by Monarch Money. You can take control of your finances with Monarch Money. You can use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. Want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, would greatly appreciate it if you subscribe to the show, and if you were listening on podcast, I would also appreciate it if you subscribed there as well. So we're going to talk about Braydon Hawthorne here, a kid that I had discussed previously on the podcast, and after his initial contact and interest with Kentucky, took a couple of other visits. By the way, this is a West Virginia decommit, to be clear. Somebody that decommitted from West Virginia, I think, way back in March. Yeah, and he immediately took a visit to Kentucky a couple of weeks after that. He has since taken a visit to Virginia Tech, Pitt. He took a visit back to West Virginia, took a visit to Duke, and he named a Final Five here just yesterday, saying that he is going to decide between these 5 schools. And right now, at least according to what's been thrown out around on the internet, and apologies to anybody who's tried to put this work behind a paywall, it's just kind of floating around on Twitter. Everybody knows it. Some people have already written about it publicly. Right now, it looks like it's going to be a race between Kentucky and West Virginia. At least that's what it looks like, according to just people who have broken this news online. Now, whether or not this ends up actually being a West Virginia Kentucky battle is I think it is contingent on whether or not he just wants to go play for Duke, because as far as I understand, Duke did also put in a decent offer alongside Kentucky and West Virginia. But according to Trilly Donovan, Kentucky doesn't have an offer that is as strong as West Virginia's. And so that's kind of where the battle is sitting right now, is that can Kentucky kind of make up what West Virginia is offering, and is this as interesting to Hawthorne as maybe going to play at a lesser school for a little bit more money? And I say lesser school, obviously West Virginia is a great program, but I think on paper we would all agree Kentucky is the better program between the two. So it sucks that stuff like this gets leaked, but I mean, hey, it's pretty much everywhere online, so I feel the need to talk about it. It's Kentucky, it's West Virginia. I would not be shocked if he does end up committing to Duke. You've seen some other things online about people making speculations as to where he's going to go. Even Hawthorne himself has said, I've not told anybody. So we're going to wait until tomorrow. The announcement is happening here. Let me pull this back up on here just mid-afternoon, if I'm not mistaken. I think 24/7 Sports is going to be broadcasting this. I might be wrong on that. I would like to see Hawthorne added to the roster. The problem is, does Kentucky have room? So we've already talked about him on the show before. I won't bore you with all the different random details here about his game and kind of his history, but he is, according to 24/7 Sports, their raw player rating, a top 35 player. According to the 24/7 Sports composite, he's the 101st player, 24th small forward, 10th according to 24/7, a 6'8", 175 small forward who has an insane wingspan at 7'2". He would probably be a developmental piece. He would be somebody that Kentucky would try and work on long term, which, again, do you want to go to play at a place like West Virginia where maybe playing time is going to be a little bit more open for you? And also, I think we talked about this whenever we discussed him previously on the show, but this kid was a late bloomer. This was a kid that was unranked, if I'm not mistaken, to one of the better players in the entire class. Wiry, maybe needs to put a little bit more muscle on. Very solid around the rim on both sides of the ball. Can handle, can shoot as well. This would be a piece that I think Kentucky would have to try and find a way to invest in, again, long term. He's not a bad player. I want to be clear. I don't want to make him out to be some type of bad player. Obviously, Duke was interested alongside the likes of like West Virginia and Pitt and all that good stuff. But this is somebody that I think would take a year and a half or two to kind of get into the rhythm of what Kentucky would want him to do as an individual piece. He's a really solid spot-up guy. I can say that, especially with his wiry frame. He can knock down shots. He can elevate his shot over people pretty easily if you want to go watch some of his tape. But I will see what happens. Will he end up committing to West Virginia, just recommitting after this whole saga of decommitting and going on all these other visits? Not really sure. We'll keep tabs on it here. The reason that I'm so hesitant right now is not because of the individual piece. I want somebody that we can develop long term. I have raved about that on this show, about just how excited I am that Mark Pope is bringing in some guys that have more than 1 year left in college basketball, and they can stay. Kentucky has the ability to pay them enough to stay, and then they can stick around and actually get better and progress, which is something I've been dying to see at UK for a very long time. Somebody like Hawthorne would be awesome. It's just, does Kentucky have the stuff to entice Hawthorne to come sit on the bench for a year or two? Who knows? If I were him, it would be a very difficult decision to make. Obviously, I know which program is better between the five that he's going to be choosing from. Obviously, Duke and Kentucky there at the top. But I just don't know if there's enough here to pitch him over a place like West Virginia, who will give him more money, apparently, and apparently will give him a little bit more PT as well. So that's what we know about Braydon Hawthorne. Solid spot-up guy. Just a solid all-around offensive weapon. It seems like it's nothing insane because of the fact that I think it would take him a year or two to actually get involved with UK. And I say involved, I mean like on the floor. And again, this is not a shot towards him. This is just what it is currently in the cycle. And this is what most other people are saying. I'm not telling you anything new here. I'm just sitting here telling you I don't really know if Kentucky has the space to fill, to get him on roster and him be satisfied is all I'm trying to say here. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know about Braydon Hawthorne. All right, let's continue along here. We'll talk about Jason Crowe Jr., a kid that I am, frankly, very much so fired up about. Before we dive into that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and wondered, where did all of my money go? Well, between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's really easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, and it gives you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's complete financial command over everything going on in your life, including you can track your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery and different streaming services, but now I can budget smarter and save more. You can take control of your finances with Monarch Money by using code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Again, that's code monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. All right, continuing along here on the Monday edition of Locked On Kentucky, Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. So we talked a little bit there about Braydon Hawthorne. We will keep tabs on it to see what's happening here with Hawthorne. A lot of people are saying that Kentucky's not out of this race. We will see. I'm not sitting here telling you I just disagree straight up, but I am skeptical. West Virginia, Virginia Tech, Pitt, Duke, Kentucky. Some people are saying schools out in Texas. I don't really know about that, but what I can tell you is about a top 10 prospect. Actually, real quick, before we get to Jason Crowe Jr., who is got some ties, I'll just say that. You can go to my posts tab on YouTube, and it used to be communities, now posts. There's a forum where you can go ask a question or give a take for the show, and we'll do our best to answer them here on the show. Obviously, we've got one coming up in just a little bit, but if you got a question there, or if you want to just leave it here in the comments, if you're watching on YouTube, you can also do that in the comments at LockedOnUK on Twitter. If you want to message me and give me a take, I will also be absolutely try and get you an answer from there as well. Okay, Jason Crowe Jr. This kid plays like he is on fire. A 6'3", 170-pound guard out of Inglewood, California, the number 5 player in the 2026 recruiting class, number 2 point guard, number 5 player in the state of California. According to the composite, he's the 6th best player and 4th best player in California. Earlier today on 3, essentially said that Kentucky's going to get him. They logged a prediction for Jason Crowe to commit to Kentucky. This is what Crowe told Jack Pilgrim of Kentucky Sports Radio. He said it's a great program. They have a great coach and Coach Pope. They have good guards coming in. They have a good, well-rounded facility as well. And Joe Tipton logged a prediction for Kentucky to land Crowe, and it has to do with his connection, apparently, to Jason Hart. Jason Hart, in case you don't remember, a big-time recruiter who has a ton of ties out west in California. And this is what Joe Tipton had to say. His father, Jason Crowe Sr., is a close friend of Kentucky assistant Jason Hart. The two were high school teammates together at Inglewood and remained close over the years. Crowe Jr. even described Hart as like an uncle. That relationship and familiarity will give Kentucky an advantage, will likely give Kentucky an advantage. You've also got Baylor, Arkansas, Texas, USC, UCLA, Arizona. Those are some of the other programs here that are getting in on the mix with Crowe. We will see what happens with, again, these two kids that we're talking about today. I'm just kind of like wait and see mode. Like, okay, we're going to know in 24 hours if Braydon Hawthorne's a Wildcat or not, in which case we'll talk about it then. If it happens, we'll probably go live. But as far as Crowe goes, the fact that Tipton out early thinks that Kentucky is going to get a top 5 player is incredible. And the comp for me, I'm not going to lie, it's not Rob Dillingham to a T. But what I will tell you is that it's definitely Rob Dillingham-esque. This kid plays like he is on fire. Speed is the name of the game here for Jason Crowe Jr. Southpaw looks really pretty with the ball in his hands, with his shot, with his spots, with the way that he just scores the ball. It's just beautiful basketball. It's the same thing that we saw with Dillingham, where he would take all of these incredible shots off the dribble in isolation, and he's just knocking them down. It's just one after another. You expect it to go in. You expect him to cook. You got to see this a little bit, and I know we've talked about Tahad Pettiford a lot recently on the show, but I think that you see some of the stuff that you saw from Pettiford here with Crowe, except I would argue Crowe's got some more speed. He's got some more flame to him, and I think that Kentucky fans should be absolutely thrilled about that. This kid also has a little bit of bounce, just like Pettiford did and Dillingham as well. To have a point guard with this kind of explosiveness and speed and a Mark Pope offense would just be phenomenal. It is an incredible thought to have, to be able to say, okay, we've got a point guard that can beat almost anyone off the dribble, can score at the rim, explosive in explosive ways. He can create his own shot in the isolation, incredible stuff in the mid-range, just gets past people and gets through them. It is a really, really fun style of basketball to watch, especially at that kind of pace. So Crowe, I think, would be just so fun because, no disrespect to Kentucky point guards of the past, obviously Dillingham here is the one that I keep comparing him to, but like to be able to have somebody that just breaks you down over and over and over and can actually shoot, let's add that contingency onto it, to be able to get a kid that can actually shoot as well would just be phenomenal for Pope. Because it gives you another option to create when things aren't going well in your within your system. You need to be as versatile as possible instead of zoom action with a big and trying to find open threes on the wing. You need to be able to have kids that can really go at it and pick and roll. You need to be able to have bigs that have hands that can catch and finish. You've got to be able to play a bit more traditionally or maybe a little bit more in isolation, I guess I could also say, whenever things aren't going right for you within the structure that you have put together. And I think some of the best teams in college basketball did this last year. They were able to find ways to score consistently in isolation or in just big-time one-on-one-ish type moments. You see it with Clayton. You got to see it with players like Janai Broome. You get to see it with players like Cooper Flagg, obviously not at the very end of the game, but throughout the course of the game in clutch, Flagg was there. Which, by the way, just bizarre. This is so off topic, but just bizarre to me what's going on with the Dallas Mavericks and the NBA with Flagg going to be a Mav. It is just it's weird. I'll say that. I'm not saying it's rigged. I'm just saying it's very, very coincidental is all I'll say there. But yeah, you need to be able to have different options. And have somebody like Crowe as your leader be incredible. We'll talk more about Crowe whenever more news comes out. We'll talk more about him as an individual player. But for now, just a brief update. Hey, Tipton's not logged a prediction, like officially, like Crystal Balled it, but said like, hey, I think he's going to commit to Kentucky, and he's got ties, which is so awesome to hear. So, let me know what you think about that. Any questions again? Just lay them up in the comments. All right, to wrap up the show, we got a question here, again from our Google form, and this one comes from Based Otega Fan. And he says, Lance, do you think that Otega ultimately commits to the draft 100% based on his performances, or do you think he listens to execs and comes back another year? I'm going to reiterate what I said like a week and a half ago, what I said like 3 weeks ago, and I'm going to reiterate what everybody else has said on like that could be tied to this. I think that, I can't remember if it was David Sisk or somebody over at KSR. Maybe somebody over at KSR reiterated this, but I'm pretty sure it was Tom Leach who initially said that Otega's probably coming back. And everyone else seems to agree with that. Otega is probably going to come back. It's just a matter of right now waiting for the announcement. He right now has 9 days to announce whether or not he's going to return to Kentucky or stay in the draft. I think you're going to hear it sooner rather than later. I think it's probably going to happen this week. I don't know anything, just speculating. He's going to come back in my opinion. We've talked about this twice on the show now, and I want to just wrap it up here. Everyone else is saying it. I also agree with it as well. I think Otega is going to return for his senior year, which is going to make Kentucky a legitimate top 5 team heading into the offseason, like the actual offseason, because we still got portal action and everything. So let me know what you think. Comments below. Appreciate you guys tuning in. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. Follow me on Twitter at LanceDawe_, and follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and God bless.